There's nothing I see that would suggest that we would have a mixed fleet in submarines. Both of these are the Korean option and the German-Norwegian option, if I can put it that way. Both of them fulfill the requirements, the very high requirements for the Canadian Navy.
In New York, Prime Minister Mark Carney addressed reporters with a statement that landed far beyond the immediate topic of defense procurement. He confirmed that Canada would not split its submarine contract. Instead, the choice has been narrowed to two options only: a German-Norwegian design and a South Korean design. Both meet the Navy's high standards. Both fulfill Canada's operational needs. And crucially, there will be no American option on the table. What reads as a technical matter about fleet composition, but it is more than that. Carney explained that efficiencies come from having one type of submarine. Shared spare parts, a common pool of expertise, and predictable maintenance cycles mean fewer costs over decades of service. What reads as a decision about logistics is also a marker of independence. In the context of strained relations with Washington, the absence of a U.S. bid tells its own story. It shows that tariffs meant to force compliance are instead encouraging a close ally to look elsewhere. The contract in question is not small. Analysts estimate a value of around 20 to 24 billion Canadian dollars for roughly 12 conventional submarines. Ottawa has written new rules for projects of this size. Defense contracts must now bring clear benefits at home. That means Canadian jobs, industrial partnerships, and long-term technological capacity. The bidders have shaped their pitches accordingly. Germany's ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems has offered the Type 212CD, a design already ordered by Germany and Norway. Its advantage lies in NATO interoperability and a proven track record. The risk is timing, because Canada would be at the back of the queue. South Korea's Hanwha Oceans has offered the KSS-3, a larger platform with lithium-ion batteries. Its promise is speed. If awarded next year, the first vessel could arrive by 2032, with 4 delivered by 2035. Seoul has also sweetened the bid with potential co-investments in Canadian industries, from battery production to liquefied natural gas and even aerospace. The message is clear. Canada is demanding economic spillovers, and suppliers are responding with packages that go well beyond submarines. To understand why this matters, we have to recall the broader context. Since April 2025, the United States has imposed tariffs ranging from 10 to 50% on a wide array of imports. The White House framed this as a fair policy, but allies have pushed back. Canada, facing duties on metals, autos, and farm exports, has chosen a different route. Instead of chasing exemptions, Ottawa has turned procurement into an instrument of industrial strategy. It has signed on to a European Union initiative worth $1.3 trillion, and it has written domestic procurement rules that favor Canadian firms first. This creates a feedback loop. Tariffs designed to pull allies closer have the opposite effect. Rather than deepening dependence on U.S. supply chains, they accelerate diversification. A defense program that once would have gone automatically to an American contractor is now a competition where Europe and Asia are the only players. Washington loses not only potential revenue, but also the influence that comes with maintenance contracts, training programs, and shared technology standards. The choice is not without risks. Germany offers integration with NATO fleets, but delivery slots are crowded. South Korea offers faster timelines, but its newest model has yet to be exported. Both designs claim the ability to operate submerged for more than 3 weeks, a crucial requirement for Arctic patrols. Both rely on advanced battery technology rather than traditional systems. What comes next will matter for more than defense. A final contract will decide not only which submarines Canada sails, but also which supply chains its economy will be tied to for decades. Washington will have to absorb the signal. Tariffs intended to increase leverage have produced a visible backfire. Canada is rerouting billions toward partners in Europe and Asia, and in doing so, shifting the balance of industrial and strategic ties.
Starting on day one of my new administration, we will end inflation and we will make America affordable again because the prices are too high.
In the campaign, the big promise by by Donald Trump was that he was going to bring down prices and make America affordable again. And everything he's done is the opposite of that.
In the midst of Trump's tariff tensions, while Canada is moving to strengthen its economy and build on its national advantages, many Americans struggle with higher costs and fading confidence. At stake is the true impact of tariffs. Will they restore U.S. factory jobs, or will they weigh the economy down into recession? President Trump entered office promising to bring prices down and make life affordable. Instead, households are facing higher costs at every corner. Grocery bills show eggs up around 16%, coffee 14%, and beef 11%, according to recent consumer price reports highlighted by critics. Automobiles and hardware are also more expensive, while health insurance renewals are forecast to climb by about 20% as tariffs lift the price of imported medicines. Utility bills are rising too, in part because new renewable projects have been slowed while demand from data centers keeps climbing. The result is a squeeze that millions of families feel daily. Inflation may not be surging at double digits, but the cost of essentials continues to climb. That sets up the first test of tariff policy. Are these measures actually making life better for workers, or are they quietly taxing consumers while missing the promised revival of factory jobs? The evidence suggests that tariffs are poorly matched to the structure of today's economy. Nobel laureate Paul Krugman has emphasized that the real drag on manufacturing jobs has long been automation and productivity, not just trade. Tariffs cannot undo that shift. In fact, higher input costs encourage firms to automate faster. The auto industry shows why. North American production is deeply integrated. A single car's components may cross the US, Canada, and Mexico borders 7 or 8 times before completion. Tariffs on steel and aluminum raise costs at every step. Instead of creating new assembly jobs, firms streamline processes and cut labor needs. Moreover, tariffs often fall on inputs rather than finished goods. That squeezes domestic manufacturers who rely on global supply chains. Companies that rushed imports before tariffs took effect have now exhausted inventories. As new orders arrive, costs climb, and businesses can no longer absorb the difference. Consumers pay more, while factories see little incentive to expand hiring. The second test is growth. Tariffs work like a selective sales tax. The Congressional Budget Office has estimated that recent tariff rounds add about 0.4 of a percentage point to inflation in 2025 and 2026, while reducing GDP and real income. The International Monetary Fund places the effective U.S. tariff rate this year above 17%, warning that it heightens risks of slower growth. Uncertainty makes the damage worse. Businesses cannot plan capital spending if tariff rates shift unpredictably from one month to the next. That climate discourages investment and hiring. Export industries face retaliation abroad, cutting orders and reducing utilization in factories at home. The Federal Reserve faces a dilemma: tolerate higher prices for longer or tighten policy and risk choking demand. Either path weighs on economic momentum. Across the border, Canada is responding to the same global shocks in a different way. Prime Minister Mark Carney has launched a Build Canada agenda that fast-tracks major energy and infrastructure projects. LNG Canada has shipped its first cargo from Kitimat. Nickel output reached 190,000 tons in 2024, nearly half of U.S. imports, positioning Canada as a critical supplier for electric vehicles and chips. Offshore wind projects in Nova Scotia are set to attract tens of billions in investment and provide clean power for export to New England. The contrast is striking. In the United States, tariffs raise costs and cloud the outlook for jobs and growth. In Canada, the crisis has become a catalyst for investment and long-term capacity. Tariffs may shift trade flows, but they cannot reverse automation or restore yesterday's factory payrolls. Competitiveness now depends on cost, certainty, and the ability to build. Canada is moving forward on that front, while America struggles with the unintended consequences of tariff policy.
Canada is home to some of the largest reserves of critical minerals in the world. We have lithium, nickel, cobalt, copper, and rare earth elements. They're all widely available here. How Canada can become more self-sufficient in the face of an ongoing trade war with the U.S.
Nickel rarely makes headlines, yet it sits at the heart of stainless steel and many electric vehicle batteries. In 2025, as global tariffs reshaped supply chains, the metal became more than a commodity. It became leverage. Under the policies described in your provided context, the United States imposed broad tariffs in August, with rates that reached well beyond earlier baselines. Canada adjusted on multiple fronts, but one strategic question remains. If talks stall and pressure rises, could nickel become the tool Canada uses to protect its own economy while signaling strength at the negotiating table? That is the thread we follow today, and it begins with understanding Canada's real weight in this market. Canada increased nickel output from about 159,000 tons in 2023 to roughly 190,000 tons in 2024, according to figures captured in the context you provided from Natural Resources Canada and USGS. On the trade side, Canada exported about 99.6 thousand tons of primary nickel products in 2023, worth roughly 3.2 billion Canadian dollars, and the United States purchased nearly half of that volume. USGS data summarized in your context adds an important layer for the U.S. market. Across 2020 through 2023, roughly 46% of U.S. primary nickel imports came from Canada, while U.S. apparent consumption ran near 84,000 tons per year. Domestic U.S. mining exists, but it is limited in scale compared with demand. This pattern makes Canada a nearby, reliable supplier, and it places nickel alongside oil, gas, and potash as one of Canada's quiet sources of bargaining power. Leverage only matters if substitution is hard and time is short. For the United States, replacing a large share of Canadian nickel quickly would be difficult. Based on the consumption baseline of about 84,000 tons and the import share figures noted above, a sharp Canadian restriction could create an effective shortfall on the order of 30 to 40,000 tons over a full year, even after tapping alternate suppliers and scrap. The cost impact can be sketched with a transparent back-of-the-envelope method. Using the average 2024 London Metal Exchange nickel price level referenced in your context, around $17,000 per ton, total annual primary nickel expenditures would be near $1.43 billion. A supply squeeze that lifts effective prices by 20 to 30% would add roughly $290 to $430 million in direct nickel costs over a year. This is not a forecast, it is a scenario built from the numbers in the materials you provided, but it illustrates why nickel gets policymakers' attention. The first impact would show up where nickel is used most. USGS end-use shares in your context indicate that the majority of nickel demand goes into stainless steel and high-performance alloys. Those inputs feed equipment makers, industrial hardware, and consumer appliances. Margins would compress until producers could pass costs through. The second impact would touch electric vehicle supply chains that use nickel-rich chemistries. Even with the rise of lower-cost LFP batteries, many platforms still rely on nickel for higher energy density. A sustained bump in nickel costs would slow planned price reductions for some models and could delay investment decisions at the margin. None of this requires a full export ban. A partial restriction, a new export condition, or tighter logistics would likely be enough to move prices and focus minds in Washington. For Canada, the trade-off is real because the U.S. is a large and convenient buyer. For the United States, the risk is also real because Canadian nickel is not easily replaced on short notice. In a trade war defined by tariffs, this is one pressure point that both sides understand, and it explains why nickel is now part of the strategic conversation.